we have like some like fairly like aggressive plans.
Well, only the paranoid survive.
You win some, you lose some, you know?
The last couple of years have been very tough for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Invest This Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Bauer. I've been a real estate investor here in Phoenix for over 12 years, doing everything from wholesaling to fix and flips and apartment syndications. But the reason I started this podcast is because I believe that investing is about more than the money. Whether that's how to get closer to your family, to become a better leader, or to be more intentional with your health, I'm always trying to improve. My goal for this episode is that you get one thing that you can immediately invest in your life or business to get at least 1% better. So happy that you're here. Now let's get into it. Today I'm excited to sit here and chat with Ivo Draginov. I've known him for many years. I've always known him to be a data-driven guy, and he's actually taken that passion and put it into Batch Services, his company, that has several other spin-off companies as well. So excited to talk about that. Ivo, thank you for being here today, and looking forward to chatting with you.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Cool. So let's, I guess we can just kind of get started, you know?
Yeah.
First and foremost, let's talk about where you got started in this real estate game. We met when? 10 years ago?
About 10 years ago, about 2014, 2015 maybe.
So it's funny, before like this show actually started, we were sitting here talking, and I was like, where did we actually meet? Was it through wholesaling or through flipping or through a mastermind, or where was it? And we think that he bought a deal from me at one point, maybe back in 2015. So it's been a while.
Yeah, I think 2014, 2015, I was buying a lot of deals. Actually, I was doing fixing and flipping at the time. So I think I might have bought a deal from you.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got on your buyer's list and got a deal from you, and then I got into wholesaling myself in around 2016.
Yeah, talk about a run up that we've had since then. That's for sure. But
For sure, yeah.
That's another conversation. Let's talk about. So, I mean, where'd you get started? How, even before I met you, where did it come from?
Yeah, so I've actually always I don't know what kind of drew me into like real estate, to be honest. I think I had just friends of just people that I've seen just in the industry, kind of just that used to be real estate agents at the time. I did know a couple of people that used to be in the fixing and flipping. They'd buy obviously properties, fix them up, spend a couple of months working on it, and I think I was exposed to that just briefly in my life. But I actually ended up getting my real estate license, or studying for my real estate license, when I was 17 in high school. Got my license a couple of months after I turned 18.
Are you from here?
I'm originally from Bulgaria.
Okay.
I moved to the States in Phoenix in 1999. So I've been here the majority of my life.
Yeah.
So in 2007, 2008, I got my license, and I started, I actually had a friend of mine that wanted to buy a property. And, he's like, well, can you show me some properties? So I'm like, yeah, sure. We can just get some properties from the MLS, So we went to the first property. He's like, that's not for me. We went to the second property. He's like, it's not for me. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I can show properties anymore. This is just too, it's just not for me.
I resonate with that so much, because like when I was first an agent back in 2011, it would have been 2012, same thing. Like, you go show a handful of buyers properties, and you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, like literally, I remember it was like 2 times. It was like, he's still a good friend of mine. He actually does some like work for me for here and there. He's a contractor now.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know that, but he's the reason why I turned away from just being an agent.
That sounds like a good friend, right? He steered you in the right direction.
For sure. So I ended up like partnering with like one of my best friends. In 2007, we ended up buying a property on Bell and 23rd Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
It was a auction property. And we ended up splitting everything. We went in, we borrowed actually $50,000. It's actually from my parents, paid them interest on that money, and we split everything down the middle.
That was it.
And it was my first house. It was his first house. We learned a lot. We did a lot of just work on that house just by ourselves. We pretty much just did everything by ourselves. There was a couple moments in as we were working through this house, we had to get on the market in a certain date that we committed to, and a lot of my friends were just actually I had a bunch of friends that just stopped by. They were just coming from Old Town. It was like literally 2:00 in the middle of the night. We're putting hardwood floors or like laminate in the house, and it was just surreal, because it was just like we're trying to finish it. It was like the last day, like we want to put like the hardwood floor, like the laminate, put the baseboards up and clean the house, and we wanted to get it done that same basic night.
Yeah.
It just ended up going to like 4:00 in the morning working on the house. Anyways, we ended up selling the house. We made $26,000 combined. We split it $13,000 each. And that was really the start of my real estate investing career.
So that was what? That was 2007?
2007. It was right like when the whole like market was just kind of getting very shaky.
Yeah, I was going to say, so like your first deal was like at the very beginning of the big fall of 2008, right?
Yeah.
Did you flip through that time as well?
I did. I ended up buying a lot more properties in 2008 because when the market crashed.
Yeah.
Actually, 2008, I think I had like 2 or 3 properties that I had bought. I ended up making some decent money on them. I think, 15, 16, 20 a pop. And 2009 is when obviously I think a lot of the prices were, like you can buy properties in Maryville for like $23,000.
There's 50,000 properties in the MLS.
There's like so many properties.
Yeah.
And that year, I just ended up buying more and more properties. I started obviously like getting hard money loans. I think I might have done like 7 or 8 deals in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that. And honestly, this was actually my part-time job. I was working at the same time as basically my dad had a contracting company, plumbing, air conditioning company. So I was doing that job during the day. I'd go to my houses in the afternoon. So it was really like, 15, 16 hour days for the most part every day for me.
That's really good exposure though. I didn't realize your dad had, a contracting company like that.
Yeah, I got a lot of exposure, just just the construction trades as well. And I did everything myself. I have a couple of guys that I got to work on the houses. I'd go, run, just every 4 or 5 hours when I get a chance.
Sure.
I'd stop at the houses, go to Home Depot, buy some materials, drop them off, or drop things off. They'll continue working. So it was really from like 5 o'clock in the morning to like 8, 9 at night.
Were you married and have kids at this point?
No, I didn't.
That's a big variable.
Made it easier.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
And so during that time, during the fall, what listeners out there might not really understand is that like the best time to be in as a real estate investor is when the market is going up or going down. The worst time is when it's flat and boring, because you can make money in every single cycle, and the worst time is when it's flat. Arguably like what we've been in right now for the last while. Yeah, and we can kind of get to this point, but obviously you're right. Even like the whole real estate market, like last year was like the lowest like transaction volume since NAR started, the National Association of Realtors started recording the data, I think in 94 and 95. Yeah.
It's crazy. So you're right.
And we'll get back to that, but let's keep going with.
So just to kind of short circuit a little bit, I did fixing and flipping part-time. I did 3 to 5 houses just consistently every single year as a part-time job. 2015 I didn't want to be in the contracting business anymore. I quit that, or we kind of for the most part dissolved the company. And my dad kind of semi-retired at the time. I went full-time into real estate. I did about 17 fix and flips that year in 2015.
Yep.
And 2016 as well kind of followed being a good year as well for me, just from a volume perspective. But I started getting into a lot of issues just finding and acquiring deals. I was having, obviously the MLS kind of changed a little bit. Not as many in 2016, not as many properties were available in the MLS. Margins didn't make sense. So I kind of got into actually it was a funny thing. I bought a property from John May.
Oh yeah.
And I ended up like seeing the property, and I was like, actually I remember the address of the property, but I was seeing like closing the transaction. On the settlement statement they see there was a fee of like $15,000. I'm like, what the hell is this thing? Like an assignment fee. I had no idea what an assignment fee was.
Yep.
I ended up calling the title company. It was Fidelity National Title, and they're like, well, it's this is what's happening. The buyer's buying it for this much, he's selling it for you for that, for that much. So I'm like, this makes like I didn't know this thing even was possible.
What is this called?
Yeah, what is it called? So that's how I got into the whole, like, I started listening to a lot of podcasts, Sean Terry's podcast at the time. Went to one of Sean Terry's events in 2016 here in Glendale, and that's really how like my journey like into wholesaling got started. So very soon afterwards, I dropped my fixing and flipping, started doing wholesaling full time with my sister, so she got into the business herself as well. And 2018 or so, I went to a mastermind that it was a Go Giver mastermind that Brandon Simmons, a good friend of ours, kind of organized. And I ended up meeting like Jesse, who's my current business partner in our company, Batch Service today. And we partnered. We were selling, basically we were buying a lot of data. Well, actually, the long story short is I was buying a lot of skip tracing data, like wholesale, selling at retail. I was kind of making some money on the side as well, because at that time, like, skip tracing was fairly expensive.
Right.
And I was trying to figure out how do I get my costs lower. So I had to commit to, at the time, like a $10,000 a month contract. And I don't need $10,000 a month in skip tracing. So I ended up like reselling it, reaching out to some people on Facebook. They wanted skip tracing. So I was really just arbitraging the costs at the time.
Makes sense.
Met Jesse. He lost one of his skip tracing providers at the time. And he's like, well, can I, get in on this? I'm like, sure. Like, and I actually ended up telling him that I made like $3,000 in like 20 minutes, just upselling the data cost.
Yeah, just.
And he's like, oh, what if I have some friends that want to do the same thing, or just we can arbitrage, what they end up paying. I'm like, sure, I guess I'll give you like 50%, because I'm thinking in my head is like, I can still make like $1,500 without doing anything really. It's like 15-20 minutes worth of work. So that's how like the whole like data like thing started for us.
Well, it probably those started before that, because when you get into wholesaling, or you try to find off-market deals, right?
Yeah.
The biggest thing is you have to have good, reliable data. That's arguably, the starting point to all marketing when you're going for off-market direct seller marketing in the real estate investment space, right?
It is.
You want to have good, reliable data because if you have bad data, like all you're doing is wasting time, money, and effort.
Yeah,
right?
So you're 100% right. We kind of forgot to mention a lot of that thing. So like that was the big challenge for me, like just doing just day-to-day wholesaling.
Yep.
It was like figuring out like what list, like what's the golden list, what list do I market to, and all of a sudden like you start acquiring a lot of data from different like data sources, and I started seeing a lot of just holes in the data, just people that I have a list of, John Smith owns 123 West Main Street. Well, John Smith probably sold this house 2 months ago.
Yep.
So I'm like sending a direct mail to the wrong individual that just bought a property 2 months ago that's never going to sell it to me.
Yep.
So I started having a lot of issues with those data sources. So what I ended up doing is, I would get a lot of different data files. I try to combine them into one file with just working through it on Excel, just with different like pivot tables and macros. And that's how I was managing a lot of the data. It was very cumbersome because, even properties that I'm skip tracing, next month there's another property. It could be the same property that I've skip traced. I'm paying double for it. So it was it was a very just cumbersome experience overall. So it was a lot of manual work. Honestly, I found myself a lot of times, like just the majority part of my day, I'm just working with data.
Dude, it's so bad. Like how, especially if you're not a data person, like it's so cloudy, right?
It's hard, yeah.
A ton of money for like repeat data that you've already bought, and so that's it's a big problem. So
and at the time, like we were spending I don't recall exactly, but at one point, obviously it was $10,000 a month that we were spending on marketing, and every dollar counts. You know how it is with direct mail or whatever else you're doing at the time. So I ended up like kind of just as we partnered with like Jesse on like the whole skip tracing side. We both had an issue as far as like, hey, this is how we manage our data, and he's like, well, can you just build something, kind of do it for me in a way. So I ended up reaching out to an engineer or developer, software developer, and I asked him, hey, well, this is kind of what I need. I want to basically recreate kind of what I've done with Excel, what I do on a daily basis. I want to try to automate some portions of it and be able to create like a software basically, just so I can make my life, my day-to-day like easier. And what ended up happening is we told a few people from the Goal Giver group. They're like, well, can I use it? I'm like, well, I have no idea. Let me ask my developer. Like, and I go back to him. He's like, well, how much would you just put a payment processing on this software? He's like, oh, it'd be $9,000. I'm like, that makes sense. Okay, I'll probably make that up in a couple of months.
Right. Yeah.
Make it back in a couple of months. So that's what ended up happening. I went back to him. He's like, okay, let's integrate like a payment processing around it. We'll create a login for people. They can log in. They can use the same software that I use, which was working for me because it was saving me a lot of like time in a day, on my day-to-day, with working with data.
Sure.
That ended up basically ballooning into just hiring more developers. More people wanted to use it. I ended up hiring more and more developers. So luckily for us, is we were having success. We had a successful real estate investing business, so we were making money on that side. So which was satisfying a lot of like my personal needs, from an income perspective. And everything that we were making from the software side, we were just reinvesting in the product. We'd hire more developers, we'd hire support people to support it afterwards. And in around 2019 or so is when we launched Batchleads. which was their first product, which was really just like a list stacking software. You can just, get a vacant property list, a pre-foreclosure list, call it an out-of-state owner list, or whatever list you're marketing or targeting. You can stack those, and you would get the names basically that appear on multiple lists. So instead of marketing to like 10,000 people, you can market to potentially 1,000 people that are the 1,000 most motivated because they appear on multiple lists. They could have multiple distress indicators, vacant property plus an out-of-state owner, maybe they have a pre-foreclosure.
So you're basically able to consolidate all of them into one platform, and then you're consolidating everything.
You're consolidating everything. You're seeing the most likely people that are gonna sell these properties, and then also for me at the time was really the skip tracing costs. I don't have to, if I've already skip traced somebody 3 months ago, I still have their phone number, so I don't really necessarily need to pay. I was paying $1 at a time before for skip tracing.
Dude, what I love about this whole platform and how it built or was built is that it was from a need from you personally. And so this is how businesses start and thrive. When you find a solution to a problem that everybody has, right? This is a problem that you had. You knew everybody else had it. So you just went and you created something to fix your own problem to start with.
Yeah.
Somebody else heard about it. Jesse was like, oh, I need that too. Let me get in on it. Okay, well, now you start thinking on a bigger level. More people start to understand that they have the same problem as you do. And all you're doing is passing off the solution to the same problem that you already had. Right?
Yeah. And as people are giving more and more advice, and I was obviously we were really the people that were testing it. We were actively obviously investing in wholesaling at the time.
Yeah.
So I'd have a need, and I'm like, hey, well, I'm trying to do this and this thing, and my software currently doesn't support it, so I'm just gonna go back to my engineers and just they'll deploy a new software update in a week or so with these new features. So we were really our own our first users basically for years.
I mean, that's the best thing because it's it's real life, right? It's what you're doing already.
Yeah.
And you're just able to use that to make your life easier.
Yeah, and I was obviously involved in a lot of just Facebook groups and communities and masterminds. So I was getting a lot of just feedback from different users. Your business needs could be a little bit different than mine because it could be, I don't know, I know you do a lot of direct mail yourself.
Yep.
I may be cold calling, so I may have some different needs from the software. So it ended up working out great for us. We launched an SMS at the time. SMS was huge back then.
Yeah.
Huge. I mean, we were sending out 20. I remember days when we sent out 25,000 messages, which was crazy. I think I'd go through the whole Maricopa County in 20 days.
Dude, which is nuts because that point in time. So I guess it's timeline wise. So this was 2019 when Batchleads came out.
Yep.
And then 2020 happened, COVID happened.
Yeah.
And everybody thought the world was going to shut down, right?
Yeah.
But now real estate just did a hockey stick.
It did a hockey stick.
Nobody knew about that was going to happen, but you were just at the forefront of that and in a position where you can provide a service to help people, basically work the system on the hockey stick that's happening. Now, when I say hockey stick, I mean that the real estate market just went way up super fast. More so than anybody ever thought that would happen. And that there's a lot of reasons why that happened, but that's what happened during that time. So you were in a position where you could...
Same with us though. We didn't think, we didn't know what was going to happen. I remember having conversations with Annie and Jesse because we owned some multifamily properties, 8, or we had I think an 8 unit and a 16 unit plus some new developments. And we're what are we going to do with these properties now? The market's crashing or, things are just probably not going to just seize up.
Yeah.
So we end up actually selling some of them. Probably not a good thing, but, looking in retrospective, but it is what it is.
Hindsight is 2020, isn't it?
Yeah,
Damn it.
You win some, you lose some, Yeah. But from the software's perspective, we were in a position to capitalize on just the growth opportunities that presented, that came about.
Yeah.
And we had some virtual driving for dollars, through our mobile application. We had a desktop version for just driving for dollars, basically in our software, which really benefited our product because people all of a sudden are staying in their house and not going anywhere, and they can actually still invest in real estate or actually buy and sell properties through our platform virtually.
Right.
So really benefited and also our software, did a hockey stick, growth.
Well, I mean, for the same reason though, right? Yeah. Because now all of a sudden, to your point, everyone was at home, they couldn't go anywhere, and you had a software, a way they could drive on their computer or on their phone to find deals.
They can text and call people just without ever leaving their couch.
which is huge. So you
Yeah.
were like just in a great position where
Yeah.
like you were able to capitalize on what was already happening in the marketplace.
Right place, right time.
Right place, right time.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then that was 2020, 2021. I'm sure it just continued to thrive. And from that, then you were able to push off other products, right? So you had the SMS, you have a batch dialer,
Yep,
right?
you have
So
a
people
dialer.
can dial, which
Yeah.
is still, are they both still available today?
Yeah, they're still available.
Yeah.
Batchleads is really used just for people that are looking to find and acquire any type of properties on and off market. So we have like some agent features. People that are doing like agent outreach.
Yep.
Both on and off market that we support realtors, home services companies as well. Like it's a much broader like niche, and investors, wholesalers, agents.
So really like batch leads, which I mean I know because I'll be transparent. I'm a user, but one of the things is that it's an organizer, right?
Yes.
So like when you're doing any sort of marketing at all, what you want to do is make sure that your data is organized in a place where you can just have it all in one spot.
Yeah.
And so the batch leads software is just a place to organize everything, categorize everything so that you're much more organized and you can efficiently market that way.
In your marketing efforts, but obviously you can like pull properties, you can kind of scour like your city, your area that you're investing in. You can, search for properties, you can view contact information for the individuals.
Yep.
And just getting a lot of different lists, marketing lists.
It's a lot of, and then you can also, you can stack, right? So
Yes.
like you can say, okay, I have a pre-foreclosure, I have a tax default list, I have a high equity list, I have a non-owner occupied list, and guess what? What one of these leads is on all four of those lists. So do we think that they're a higher likelihood to probably, sell to an investor like us? Probably.
Yeah,
right?
and that's how a lot of the people like would do it, just generally speaking, historically. But we recently introduced like something called batch rank, which is a machine learning algorithm based on like supervised and unsupervised learning that basically does all that for you just in a click of a button.
Yeah.
And it's basically it's a predictability model that will pinpoint the properties that are most likely to sell in your given area.
Is that out now?
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Is that new?
It is.
Like how new? Like
this
week?
6 days new.
6 days. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the thing too, is like one thing when it comes to data is it's continuously getting more refined and getting better, right? Yeah. The crazy thing about AI and the influence that AI has on business today is that the information out there about people is so abundant that if for one individual like you or I to go and try to find all these pieces is very cumbersome, very time exhausting, right? It takes forever. But for you to be able to build an AI algorithm that's learning what you want them to learn, it makes it that much faster and much more efficient, right? And so I love that you're continuously upgrading the system and allowing that for the users that are out there to capitalize on it, because it's only getting better, right? And in a scary way, it's getting better because like you can find so much information out about people.
Yeah, and like to our conversation like earlier, like you mentioned like about like the data that kind of goes into like your marketing, like it has to be like top notch. Well, the same goes with the any machine learning, or even like a lot of the generative AI that you've seen at ChatGPT and Google's Gemini. Really, it's like if the data going into it is garbage, you're gonna have garbage out, basically. Garbage results.
Garbage in, garbage out.
So like luckily like I was from the very beginning, like I mean I'm more like just how my brain works. I'm just always thinking about just a lot of like data and how do I improve the data and how do I make sure that like even like with marketing methods, when I was wholesaling, and I'm no longer wholesaling, but a lot of the stuff is just like how do I obsessed over data.
Well, I mean, this is natural now that you own a data company. I mean,
correct, yeah. But like we put a lot of emphasis, just as always starting from me, like in the whole company, to really just become the best in the industry when it comes to data. And we've built a lot of our data models, and we've worked like for we spent millions and millions of dollars just over the past like 3 or 4 years just working to improve our data. So everything from like assessor and recorder data, because we've seen is that certain companies, like, and there's a couple of different aggregators out there, like huge conglomerates, ICE, which is formerly Black Knight, and CoreLogic, that historically are known to have they're the compilers basically of the data.
And are you propping yourself up, or is Batch propping itself up to be at that level where you can?
Yeah, we actually are. So like the batch leads aside, we have a batch data arm, which basically we sell data. We actually power out other companies that you guys I'm sure a lot of users actually are using, and it's powered by our own data.
Okay.
So the same data that powers batch leads is the same data that powers a lot of these other software companies.
Yeah.
And we've been able to really focus on the data quality has been a big piece in our puzzle to like, how do we get it right? How do we get it like the lowest latency possible when it comes to MLS data? Like Zillow is an example. Like when the property goes on the MLS, 6 to 12, maybe 24 hours later, it's on Zillow.
And it's aggregating that way.
It's aggregating that way. So like that's obviously the latency.
Yeah.
It could be, let's say, 24 hours in a certain market or even less nowadays. But that's really the latency. So like everything so we're constantly trying to improve like the latency, the data quality, the data, the fill rates. And today, we have I'll tell you, we have, and I have a lot of reports that we've just published as well. But we have 20% higher data coverage than the companies that I just mentioned, the CoreLogic, the Black Knights, the First Americans, that have been in the space for the past 30 years. And we've been able to do that just from multi-source aggregating. And basically we use I don't want to get too technical, but we use some very sophisticated the data warehouses and data platforms that allow us to do that.
Who are some of the companies that somebody would recognize that would use the batch data to try to, is this something like a Zillow?
Yeah. We do sell to some publicly traded companies. A big one, it would be, I think you said you use Crexi, uses some of our data as well.
Those of you that are out there looking for commercial properties, Crexi is a great free resource that gets you online, or at least for the free version, you can look at off-market stuff. It's great.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other companies that just huge companies that you never heard about. Like banks have started to use our data as well for underwriting purposes. So when they have or hard money lenders nationwide have started using our data again for underwriting purposes, doing comparables as well nationwide. Looking up MLS statuses nationwide, because they could have certain markets that they don't have MLS data for, if it's not their local market.
Yeah.
And these are some large companies. I mean, we're currently talking to companies that are that are worth $10+ billion.
Yeah.
That are using our data and are either usually an API or a bulk data delivery for them.
So really, what you did, you started out of necessity for you, but then migrated and into, other people finding out that they need that same resource or need that same solution. You then were able to capitalize on a market shift that you would have never thought was going to be here, but you were in the right place at the right time.
Yep.
That allow you to grow and then spin off on more legs or arms when it comes to the solutions you can provide for people. And now today we're sitting in 2024. September of 2024.
Yep.
How many people are working for the company now?
We downsized a little bit. We're at about 150 people currently.
Okay, so that's still sizable, right?
Yeah.
150 people, and you're able to help tons of companies out there, tons of investors finding data and the right data. That's pretty good, right? Where does it go from here? Where do you continue to grow? Do you continue to get bigger?
Good question. We have some fairly aggressive plans. Obviously, we've the last I would say the last year has been a little bit more challenging than 2020, 2021, 2022. Just because there's been a lot of just churn in the industry, people I've seen people sometimes, quite honestly, just cancel our product, and the reason they give us, I heard real estate investing was easy, I make more money in the stock market, so I don't think this I don't think this industry is for me. But there are a lot to be honest, and it's very easy, no barriers to entry in a lot of the how it is, the wholesaling and investing. You can be an expert just by listening to a couple of YouTube videos nowadays. But it takes a lot of perseverance to kind of get to that next level and have an established business, basically. Yeah.
And it's, what's wild about that is that the last couple of years have been very tough for a lot of people. Yeah. I mean, they really have for a lot of people. And what that's doing is actually making, arguably in my opinion, our industry better, because it's getting rid of people that shouldn't be in there to begin with.
Yeah.
Because this is not it's not easy. Like, there's nothing about the investment space, whether you're wholesaling, whether you're flipping, whether you're a hard money lender. I mean, the reality is it's not easy. And
It
so
depends who you listen to on YouTube.
well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. But those are the
No,
people
but
that come in and are, they're there for a few little small time, and then they're out.
Yeah, and it's not an easy business. Like, no business
Right.
is easy if you want to be successful at it.
Right.
Like,
Right.
honestly.
And last the tail of time, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
for you to be in any business at all and last, what is it, like 5 years is the typical mark for, it's like 97% of businesses fail in the first 5 years.
Yeah, that's the reality of it. Like, I see a lot of it, like, even from my
Yeah.
own users, and the people that really persevere. It takes a lot of, like, guts and, like, just grinding to really get to that next level. And it's a huge commitment, honestly, on the personal level and professional level.
What's also a big thing I've noticed about this is, more so than ever today, hard work is frowned upon, right? Like, it really is. It's frowned upon to have hard work, to have hard work ethic, to have a routine, to go through adversity, right? The second something gets hard, people just want to turn their back and say, oh, it was too hard. Well, that makes it easier for those of us like you and I and others that are listening to this podcast that are willing to put in the work and the time and suffer through the adversity and suffer through the the punches to the face and the hard times, right?
Yeah.
In order to figure out where you're going to go and to stay in the game, because I'm a firm believer that if you never give up, you can never be beaten, right?
I agree. And, like, especially, like, when you're getting started in this business, like, you have to, like, how are you gonna, like, win with somebody that's been in the business over, like, the past 10 years and has a lot of experience? You just got to outwork them.
Yeah, right.
And obviously, when you start getting more experience, you can start working a little bit smarter and leveraging different systems, whatever, like, just leveraging just your network and your time as well. But in the beginning, you just got to outwork everybody.
And that, like, even I would argue that, especially with how fast technology is going, that as time goes on, you still got to outwork people.
Yeah.
I was watching a podcast this morning with The Rock on it, and it was actually just talking the last part that he was on the PBD podcast that I like to watch sometimes.
Yeah. I was at a conference actually. PBD was speaking.
Oh yeah, the Clever Summit.
It was the Clever Summit. Yeah. He was the keynote speaker. So I talked to him a little bit backstage, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy.
Yeah.
I would have gone to his event that was just in Florida.
It was like
probably
last month or something. Yeah.
Probably go next year. I mean, I think that he's just a really good guy.
Yeah.
Anyways, he had The Rock on it that was at that event. That I think it's called The Vault. Is what his event is. Anyways, and he was talking about hard work, and like hard work is the thing that you have to do if you want to be successful in whatever it is, right? It's the one thing. I'm sure you've heard the saying, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And that's, to me, that's so evident in life, in work, in your relationships, and I mean, it goes across the board. Yeah. And so, I think it's going to continue to be hard. Yeah. That's what I like.
Yeah. So, but to answer your question, because we kind of went a little bit, sidetracked. But like, what happens next with Batch overall? I mean, we are going to continue to grow the company. We want to be a household name, really, like in this industry. Yep. And not just this industry. We're expanding into like home services in businesses such as solar, roofing. A lot of these guys are just reaching out to us, and they have a lot of similar like similar marketing methods, like a lot of the investors and wholesalers. And we have a lot of data to support their businesses. Sure. So for instance, some like we're selling data to some like big like solar and roofing companies nationwide that are basically identifying properties that are most likely to obviously get us any kind of work done, such as solar or roofing. But at the same time, we're also eliminating some of the data that they don't need. So for instance, we have like permit data nationwide, so that and anybody that's gotten a permit in the past year for the solar or for roofing, let's say as an example, are not gonna get solar roofing again,
right? Like
or whatever it is the next like 5 years, 10 years, yeah. So like we're able to eliminate those properties, give them the data that they need, and they end up like operationalizing the data. And it's the same with a lot of other like different like service-based companies.
So all you're doing in that area is like what we talked about before, is you're allowing people to be able to consolidate their data down to where they're actually spending marketing dollars or effort or time or all of it going after the people that they are, they're actually in their target group that they're going after, because there's so much waste. I don't even know how to classify the percentage of waste that you have when you're in a marketing campaign, right? Like, is it right off the bat, is it 30% waste? Is it 80% waste and 20% good? And that's where your 80-20 rule comes into play, right? Like
it depends on your team and your team's capacity to understand like data overall. But I'll tell you like some of the we have like one huge company that's and everybody knows a lot of this company, like Pods as an example. They buy some data from us as well. They've been able to like actually I don't quote me on the numbers, but it's really something like we've been able to streamline their like processes for people going from just initializing a request to get a pod delivered to their house to by the time they check out. We've streamlined that process by about 80%, and we offer them data such as like geocoding data. We do address verification, and then if somebody doesn't put in their information or their full information, because you might put in your first and last name, maybe your address, but hey, like maybe I'll just put in my email but not my phone number. We end up appending a lot of the information, so we basically create a full profile for you, and everything's automated to the point where like I think they're and this was like a while back, but I think that their form intake was taking 12 minutes. We were able to like cut it down to like really like in less, like a minute basically.
So really what that happens when it takes a long time for somebody to put a form in, right?
Yep.
We know that they don't put it all in, right? Like the speed or the time.
Yeah.
People are either lazy or they don't want to spend time on things. So you want to be able to shorten the input form as small as possible so they can put whatever small information in, click submit
as quickly as possible. And it's just like the whole Amazon effect. Like you're expecting everything to be delivered, today, and you want the quote today, and those types of things. So so that's another company that we sell data to. And on the B2B side, with just selling to like larger businesses, a lot of our flat files or bulk data or APIs, we're continuing to like make like strides, because like I mentioned, we have like 20% better data coverage and quality for things like bathroom counts than anybody in the space. Like just anybody in the space. If you look at anybody's data, just generally speaking, like you'd find that just to give an example, they'll have something like 85 million properties with bedroom counts nationwide. We have 112 million.
Okay.
And there's just one example of a lot of how our data wins over the competition. Everything from like, and it happens because we end up aggregating from a lot of different sources. Data, we compile it into one. We apply rules for cleanup rules, and then we're able to validate a lot of this data.
I was gonna say, like, if you're aggregating from lots of places, inevitably you're gonna have some misinformation, right? Or information that's not consistent with each other all the time. So that's what you're talking about with the cleanup. So it's like for instance, if like 3 different sources point that a house has and like an issue actually with any of this data, the real estate data, is sometimes like a system might classify a house having a 2 bathroom versus a 1.5 bathroom. That's like a typical example. Sure. Now,
does a house have 1.5 or 2 bathroom? I don't know. Are you rounding it up or not? And some systems do round it up, some don't.
Right.
But at the same time, for this example, if you have, let's say, 3 systems that are saying, or 3 data vendors that are saying, hey, there's 1.5 bathroom, and then only one of them is saying it's 2, it's probably a 1.5 bathroom. And we're able to actually validate that because we also have MLS data, and as agents, obviously, they're incentivized to enter incorrect information. That also obviously is very is data that really enhances our data quality.
Is that an AI thing that you're able to?
It's machine learning.
Machine learning,
but some people might call it AI. Yeah,
machine learning.
Yeah.
So I mean, because like that becomes super valuable and really important, because once again goes back to the validity of the data. Like you want to have the most accurate, consistent data.
Correct. Yeah.
For me in direct mail, one of the biggest problems we have is making sure that we get to the right mailbox of somebody, right? People move, of course, they have vacant property, but one thing that your system gives is a USPS validated address.
Yeah.
And like I'm still in the first part of testing with that, but it's like if that's true, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it is. So we actually have a direct integration with USPS.
Okay.
And it's we're actually they have like an open API that basically you can subscribe to. You got to pay. It's about $10,000 a year in the paying, but you have to go through a certification process. And we've had this for like past 4, maybe 5 years now, and we validate everything through the USPS. Because of the reasons you mentioned, like added validity, verification, because like we also sell data to like shipping companies, and shipping to the wrong address could cost you literally thousands and thousands of dollars, because you're sending these big semi trucks to a wrong address, and
When somebody gets a semi truck to their house, they're like, "Hey, we're here for the delivery." Like, that's not my address.
The wrong address, yeah. So yeah, that's why a lot of companies, when you like do like online forms, they usually either like autofill your address, or when you enter an address, they like, hey, well, there's an alternative spelling of this address. Is this correct?
Well, and I mean, just as a plug for the listeners out there that are listening to this, like one thing I like is when I put in a list into the list organizer, it won't even let me put the mailing address in. It will auto put it in there, right? It doesn't care if I have a previous address. Your system doesn't care. It's going to put it in there for me because it knows it's right.
Yeah,
right.
And the data is updated daily for us.
Yeah.
And obviously different counties have different update like methods, but the data is as accurate as anybody basically can get it.
Yeah, I like that. So so you build up this business, right? We've gone over the growth of the business, where you're going. You're going to continue to grow, continue to get better. Let's talk about why, right? Like, what's the point? Obviously you got into this out of necessity, but now that you're here, tell me, like, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? What does being an entrepreneur do for you?
Yeah, I think that for me it started just from like seeing my dad just at a young age. He was an entrepreneur. He owned several businesses, ventured in like different things. He used to like just import and like just export like just like metal, like ships of like metal. I think that's one of the first businesses that I remember. He used to have like a nightclub before, like another like store he had like bought. Then he had like just different types of businesses that he kind of ventured into, and he was semi-successful in for the most part all of them. So I think that's kind of how the idea for just entrepreneurship came about for me at an early age. When I came to the U.S., actually, like, it's important to like know this. So like when I grew up, like I grew up in Bulgaria. I was there until like 11 and a half, 12 years of age. Quite honestly, like I had like the perfect life. Like I'm not like exaggerating. Like I had the perfect life with the perfect childhood, just because like we had everything. Like we were upper middle class.
I don't even know. Is Bulgaria? Is it a higher end area? I don't. Unfortunately, I don't know much about it.
No. There's I mean, just like the majority of like Eastern Europe, there's a big separation between the wealthy and the poor. But it's an established country. You can get everything you need to, just like in the U.S. nowadays. Sure. But I just had we had always had financial means as a family. So like that's the lifestyle that I grew up in, like up until 11 years of age. Like we come to the U.S. And long story short, my dad's like business partner at the time ended up actually, quite honestly, just falsifying some documents that ended up basically transferring some like large like plots of land and business assets to himself, and it was just this big like kind of ordeal.
Wow.
But he got like a lot of money stolen from him, and that made an impact for me. So we ended up coming here to the US. We were literally like we had to borrow money to come here as a result of a lot of the stuff that happened with him. He just trusted his business partner, and I think his business partner just gambled a lot of the money away as well.
Oh man. What a story.
And yeah, so we ended up coming here. We had to borrow money to come here. Like, so I went through, a lot of people don't know this, but I actually came like just literally illegally through Mexico. And that was in 1999. And we come here and like we have nothing. So that made just a big imprint in how I think about money, like business, like kind of what I want out of life as well. Because like the first Christmas and New Year's, like my present like for Christmas the first year was really it's a puzzle from the dollar store, which was a big change from how I grew up over the past 11, 12 years.
Dude, that's huge. I mean, that's that adversity you had to go through. I mean,
so
that's a
like
whole story in and of itself, man. Like that's huge.
Yeah, so like that just made like a very big imprint in me. Like I'm like I never want to get. And obviously, the next like 2, 3, 4 years, just being in the U.S. was a struggle. Shop just secondhand stores all the time, just go through yard sales, that type of ordeal. So,
did your dad did he start a business here in the U.S.?
He did, yeah. He started like the plumbing business in like 2003, and kind of again the entrepreneurial spirit as well.
Yeah.
And the business ended up like doing well. We had like about the time in 2015 we had about $3 million in annual revenue, so it was an okay business.
Plumbing companies print money, man. I know that. I know that to be a real thing.
Yeah. So yeah, that whole like honestly like just made a big imprint on just how I think about money. Like I think my why is like I never want to get to that place again. Especially like like in the future, obviously I know I want to have kids, and I do have two kids now, and I'm married, but I just never wanted to be in that position again. So and I feel like I live out of like fear of that I'm gonna at some point get into that. I'm gonna end up there eventually.
Dude, have you ever heard the saying "only paranoid survive"?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, that's a PBD thing, Patrick Bet-David thing. Only the paranoid survive, and arguably that's what makes a good business owner. Somebody that's paranoid and is not, that's how you stay in business. So there's not anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I feel like there was a lot of wrong with like just my mindset and my thinking, and I'm not saying that there isn't. You can argue that as well, but like I've come to realize with a lot of this stuff that I've read and books that I've listened to and stuff like that. I read like just books like just constantly. Like I read a lot of books. But I think a couple of things. One of the books, like it was like a millionaire, like a book I was talking about, just people that have like that are basically afraid of have a lot of the same like thoughts and fears like that which kind of validated a lot of my own feelings. Was like like when you get like some of these like individuals that have let's say $10 million, like they're just paranoid they're going to lose it. At $100 million in net worth, they're still paranoid they're going to lose it. And one of the Kevin Hart's like documentaries that I watched 6 months ago maybe. He's obviously, I think he's worth like what $400 million or something. He's like, I'm just like afraid it's all gonna go away one day. So that's why I just do what I do. And to me, like obviously that's a whole different level from where I am at. Right. But it's still like I'm like, wow, even at like that type of like net worth, what everything that he has, like he's still paranoid that it's all gonna go away. Another thing, like just this weekend I met with some like just family office advisors that I'm part of, just in there I'm actually a client of theirs, but we had a conversation about that same subject. And Jim, like actually who kind of runs the company, he's like he's like, my dad's the same mentality. That's just how he grew, and so it's just never gonna go away. And I just I
think that's great. I mean, I really do. I think that's really good that you have the awareness to do that, right? And to be insightful enough to know that, like, to be paranoid about it.
Yeah, I'm definitely paranoid, and that's honestly why kind of like how I started into just I just need to give everything for myself. I need to outwork my competition, and I just need to do the best that I can, and just there's really no stopping this train. Right before we started recording this, like you mentioned, like there's obviously a downside to all of these things. So it's
well, let's make a transition to that then. So like, okay, what's the downside? So the fact that you are paranoid and that you are willing to outwork others, and that you are willing to, you've built this big business now with 150 employees and a business partner and all these people that rely on you, right? So then that puts even more stress or more more responsibility on your shoulders in order to provide for all of these people. But there are some costs to that. So like, what costs have you seen, or what influence or impact has this had on your family and on your wife and on your personal life and on your mental capacity?
It's gone through different phases, as of, obviously depending on the stage of my business as well. Because like in the very early like stages of my business, and even like the investing business at the time, like I had my first son when I was in 2016. So at the time I didn't have Batchleads, what didn't exist. I was doing a lot of wholesaling at the time, and spending time with the family, obviously spending time with the kids, just being present honestly was probably the biggest thing, because you can be just physically there but not be like mentally present. And that's I've definitely just not been mentally present in a lot of like my interactions with my wife and my kids and stuff like that. So that was really up until like 2022, 2023. I feel like I started getting a lot more just aware of kind of my presence and just being there. And if I'm home, like I'm trying not to be on the phone. So that ended up like shifting for me like probably a couple of years ago, and I'm just being very aware of it, because like at the same time I don't want my kids. I think I listened to or read something that it's with a lot of like kids that they're not gonna care how much money you were able to provide. They just care how much time you spent with them. And I think that that message just resonated with me, and I'm trying to be more present in my daily interactions with them, trying to spend more time with them. To be honest, at the end of the day, like I'm not sure what's the perfect answer. It's probably a balance of everything. I'm not sure.
I mean, one of the questions I thought about is like, what do you think about work-life balance, right? So you built this big business. Well, of course, there's a cost in the sense of like, if you're building this business where people are relying on you then to perform, and you have to perform for them.
Yeah.
Well, there's a cost because now you can't be as present with your family, or you can't be as present with your wife, or you can't, right? Which are really, really equally, if not more important than running your business because, right? But like, do you think it's time management? They could solve that problem?
I feel like I've struggled, to be honest, like just on a personal level with like a lot of that mindset, because like, like up until like, let's say, I mean, when I'm at work, I try to basically put everything in my work. I try to eliminate distractions. Obviously, like time management is a big portion of that as well. Trying to be impactful with the time that I have. At the same time, like, a couple of years ago, I made like just a mindset shift for me that like, well, what do I actually want out of life? Just generally speaking, because like, like my whole life I've been focused on just go, and just, make things happen and just, impact, like just grow my business and revenue at pretty much any cost, that I have to pay. And that's just been my mentality for a long time. Something recently that happened that I feel like just ended up changing my mindset, honestly, is my dad got diagnosed with just cancer recently, and that whole experience just kind of threw a big wrench in just my whole line of thinking, and I feel like it just changed my relationship with just my work and life overall. And I'm just trying to be more mindful, because at the end of the day, like, I'm trying to ask a lot of these questions, and I've had like just some like very like deep kind of conversations with just some other entrepreneurs and some of the things that they've gone through, and when is enough? And I definitely have enough to just retire if I wanted to. Like, that's not what I want to do. But at the same time, I don't want to go to the end of my life and have any regrets. Like, well, I wish I would spend more time with my family. So I'm trying to at least be like very conscious in asking these questions now, and trying to figure out what maybe like a balance looks like for me. And at the same time, I want to be able to achieve things and impact people's lives, and from just let's see, our softwares or revenue, and obviously like be able to like donate in the future. Not that I donate now as well, but I want to be able to make bigger impact in people's lives as well, whether it's through education or donations or anything else. So I'm really like asking a lot of these questions myself, to be honest. It's just I don't necessarily know there's a perfect answer, and I'm looking at a lot of people that. Like I've kind of gone down this rabbit hole of just reading a lot of materials, people that have kind of gone through, a lot of just business success and, a lot of regrets they've had.
Yep.
And oftentimes people don't speak about those things. I really like, that's what I found out. You got to really just find the right people to like, just listen to and just understand their life's perspectives. And at the same time is the only thing that you can't get back.
That's exactly
in life. So and again, like I mentioned, like with my dad's situation, it just, he's worked all his life on achieving financial success, being able to provide for us. Now, things are, up in the air, and like, it just kind of begs the question, like, it's like, even like a lot of like, let's say his retirement, he was basically about to retire. I mean, he was basically semi-retired, but my mom's about to retire as well. So they had other plans in life. This whole thing kind of comes in play and changes the game.
I mean, so like, not that I have the right answer either, but like my perspective on that is the whole reason why we're entrepreneurs is to be able to control your time as much as possible, right? Well, the old adage where like you work until you're 65 or 70 years old, and then after that is when you go and experience life. I think that's wrong. That's incorrect. You got to experience it now. Right. And so like one thing that me and my wife have done a really good job of is traveling the world. Like we have literally gone for the last like 3.5 years.
You've traveled more than anybody I know.
Right. All over the place. And that's intentional, because I know that those experiences, I will never regret that. I don't care what it is. We will never regret those ever. Right. And like, of course, like you have to be able to work and provide and be able to, get income. But I just put a big emphasis on those life experiences. And it's been a lot with my daughter, Natalie. She's gone on a lot of stuff with us. And like, those are experiences for her, by the time she was like 8 years old until now she's 11, going to be 12 in
Yeah.
November. Like, those are formative years for her. She definitely sees, she was with us on those trips.
Yeah.
She'll never forget that stuff.
She'll never forget it.
Never. And that will set her up for the future for her, so that when she has kids and she has a family, like, she'll remember that that's the important thing to do at that point. And so, you know, I guess the only advice I could give to you is, like, you know, try to experience stuff today if you can, right? Like, and it sounds like you're going through that, right?
I'm definitely going through it. I mean, I'm in the process of just building a house up in Flagstaff, which is about 2 hours away. Just gonna be this, like, it's a building. It's probably a little bit bigger than I should build it, but you know, one day maybe, like, you know, kids can go and enjoy it when they go up, like, you know, snowboarding and skiing and stuff.
Well, I mean, so you were talking about having impact, you know, and you want to be able to have the financial resources to be able to make an impact with donations. But, dude, you've already built a platform that has been able to impact lots and lots and lots of people, companies, other, you know, investors, other people. I mean, what does it feel like to you that you've already accomplished that? You've already built a platform that's helping so many people in a lot of ways. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely know, like I would say, like, we actually, at the peak of our company, we had about 260 employees.
Okay.
And that's a lot of, like, just lives that, like, you know, my decisions impact on a daily basis. Like, you know, everything from, you know, making sure we have enough, you know, revenue and we can pay their salaries. And obviously a lot of these people were probably the only, like, providers in their family as well. So, like, you know, multiply that times 4, you're pretty much responsible for, call it 1,000 people, basically,
right, on
a daily basis. So your decisions really, like, day-to-day decisions matter greatly in, you know, good and bad, because things can turn very, you know, turn south very easily. So I take a lot of responsibility in that. At the same time, like, I don't feel like I've done nearly as much as I wish I can do. I know there's a lot more that I can do, and I honestly don't see it, like, you know, that just because I've accomplished something that it's anywhere near enough.
Sure.
So
once again, only the paranoid survive, right?
Only the paranoid survive, like, but you know, I'll try to do my best, you know, to kind of hit all those goals, and, you know, hopefully I get, you know, somewhere far. But I consistently try to figure out, you know, how do we, like, basically impact more people's lives. Obviously, I know that, you know, our software, let's say, helps people, like, get deals that, you know, equals, you know, them getting, you know, money, you know,
then supports their family. So if you, like, think about just you probably haven't thought about the vast network of people that you really do touch, right? And then it, like,
it's hard to kind of get that kind of a perspective, quite honestly, because, you know, you don't know sometimes what happens behind the scenes, but at the same time, like, you know, at least we're doing something to try to impact people's lives in a positive way. And but like I said, like, in my mind, like, it's not near enough of what it really can be.
Do you think it's been tough? So we talked about your family, your wife. What about other relationships that you've had, like, in the scaling of your business, right? Has it been tough to manage and maintain those relationships, or has it been, like, talk to me about that a little bit?
Yeah, good question. Quite honestly, like, I feel like I've I've let go of, like, some of the personal friendship relationships, honestly, just because of the day-to-day, just, like, busy with work, not for any other reasons, really. So it's not as hard to, like, stay in touch with just people outside of my small circle of people. And, you know, sometimes here and then I actually do make it, like, priority for myself to, you know, like, every week to just call somebody, like I literally just go scroll through my phone, like, who can I call just that I haven't talked to in a while, and just kind of touch base. And I make that just for me, it's just once a week. I'll just literally scroll down my phone. If anybody that I haven't talked to recently, I'll just give them a call, just say, hey, what's up, how's the life, just to touch base. And I honestly think I should do it more often. It just, you know, things get in the way and life gets in the way sometimes. And my right now I have 2 boys, so my life is just very, like, just, you know, just I gotta go pick up school and soccer, then swimming, then like golf for, like, the other kid. And so it's been, like, just just the busy schedules, which is great. I'm not complaining. It's part of, like, the life's experience, honestly, at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, but think about it. So yeah, you're absolutely right. As you're building a multi-million-dollar company, of course, you're going to be a bit in a silo for a little bit, because you got to be head down. Right?
Yeah, and a lot of, like, we've kind of the same thing with a lot of, like, you know, like, people that I used to talk to in the industry, and call it, like, not even the affiliates, but just people that I knew in the industry from masterminds and things like that. And, like, there's I feel like I haven't done a good enough of a job to reach out to them and, to really touch base with some people, because you're right, like, for 2-3 years, like I can remember just being head down, trying to make an impact, trying to, do these new features or whatever else and solve these problems. And some of these relationships sometimes just go, probably years, without me speaking to some people. And that definitely makes those relationships have definitely been impacted.
Well, and like we were talking about in your office a few weeks ago, right? Like I was kind of just going through my phone and I hadn't talked to you in a long time.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like,
you reached out, yeah.
Just reaching out, and that's it. I think it'd been prior to COVID last time we spoke, right?
Yeah.
And it's like these people that, like Brandon Simmons, is somebody I want to reach out to, and I just haven't done it yet, right? But it's these relationships I want to keep going, because mainly I care about it, right? It's just we've all been super busy, and next thing you know, you look up and it's been 2 years or whatever. It's like being aware that that's what you have to do is just to pick up the phone and call somebody, I think is really important, right?
Definitely. I mean, the human, like the relationship factor is a big one. Sometimes we forget. I was at an event, like I mentioned, like just this past weekend in Fort Lauderdale. And just being face to face with people just felt so much differently, like than just communicating with them on Zoom and Google Meets and stuff like that. It's a different relationship, different dynamic. It just feels good to just kind of get out there, just talk to people, see what they're up to.
Yeah, man.
It's a different ball game,
dude. 100%.
Just doing it the old school way.
The problem is, like, when COVID hit, right, everybody hit on the Zoom button, and now all of a sudden you're staying at home, and like, I'm so against that in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Amazon now just released something where they're going to have everybody starting in, like, I don't know, maybe before the end of this year, everybody has to go back to the office.
I think in January, I read it like a couple of days ago.
Yeah. Like, that's a huge thing, right? And I think it's going to be good. Our world has to get back to how it used to be. Interpersonal communication will always trump, being on Zoom. Always, right?
Yeah.
Like, just having this, like, it feels good, right? To be in, and that's why I like people coming in and being on the show like this now, because it's like, let's talk.
That's why I asked you, like, are you doing it like on virtually or not? Because it's a game changer. Just keeping that in touch with, like, the people that you need to keep in touch with. And
100%, man. Would you what advice, if somebody was 20 years old, which there's lots of people who are probably listening to the show that are in that, not 20, but in their formative years of their early adulthood, what would you tell somebody that was gonna, like, what advice would you give to a 20-year-old aspiring to be a business owner? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would say think deep and hard in what your destination is, or what the end result you're trying to accomplish is, because if you're just trying to make things just going day by day, and not knowing where you're going is going to be problematic, because you're just going to shift course just multiple times. You could day by day you may not know kind of what your goal is for the day. So, like, there's like a good, like, concept, and it's like a great like, honestly, like, just not just a book, but just like the whole concept of OKRs. I don't know if you've heard of OKRs just in general. So it's I think basically everything started from, like, just Intel back in the day, just implementing OKRs. And I think Google as a company made it very, like, mainstream. There's like a great book on OKRs. I forget actually the name of the book right now, but it talks about how a lot of, like, these businesses are ran based on OKR. So OKR stands for objectives and key results. What ends up happening is, like, you figure out what your goal is. So, for instance, like, I think one of the...
We call it What Matters?
What Matters, yeah.
What Matters, yeah.
Yeah. So...
Good thing about having the internet right here.
Yeah. So for instance, like, think, like, hey, like, you want to fill up, like, a stadium. So that's I think, like, you're a sports team. You want to fill up a stadium with, full capacity. What do you have to do to actually fill up the stadium? Well, that's your objective.
Mm-hmm.
I need to fill up the stadium. What key results will help me basically get there? So the key results are going to be, and then these basically kind of flow down to, like, each department in each individual level. Obviously, you could be, like, doing it by yourself, but you could, the concept still can be scaled down or up, basically. So, for instance, your marketing department has to put out so many, like, outreaches, like, just, or communication to, like,
they got to get
they got to get in front of somebody. What does the sales team have to do? What does the actual, like, people that are managing the actual stadium have to do to be able to, like, support, like, full capacity in the stadium? So then, like, the key results support the objective that you're trying to hit. So my advice would be really figure out where you want to get to, and reverse engineer how you're actually going to get there.
Start with the end in mind.
Start with the end in mind, because like otherwise you're just going to be you're not going to get anywhere.
I think having that OKR, so you have objectives, you have key results, and then is R the result?
And it just stands for just objectives and key results. And but again, like you can really scale it down from an objective to a key results, and then there's like kind of individual KPIs within the actual key results. So kind of everything flows back up, and you basically assign from a business perspective, because we've ran a company based on OKRs as well. But from a business perspective, like you're basically like it goes down to the individual contributor. So the individual contributor has to hit these 3 metrics or these 3 like key results to be able to, or they call it objectives, these 3 key results to hit the key result. And when you hit these 3 key results, you're hitting your objective, hopefully.
Yeah. So it's basically another version for your KPIs or your key performance indicators to get to an objective. So
correct.
What we'll do is we'll put a link to that book, What Matters, in the show notes, so that if you want to buy it and read it, you can. But I think that's really important. Dude, such a great piece of advice is like, have the end in mind. I can tell you that when I first started, I didn't have the end in mind. Like I was just swinging the bat.
Same with me.
Like
same with me. Yeah.
That's what it is. And as for 10 years now, I've better defined what the end in mind is for me.
Yeah.
And I think as entrepreneurs, everybody, the end is to control your time as best as you can.
As best as you can. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned earlier that like none of us have any control of our time, and that's no more than true, right? That's the truth. That's the one currency that we can't ever get more of, and we also don't know when we're going to run out of. So
yeah, and that's a big one also, like, because again, like, just that's a huge one. Like, make the best out of the time you have.
Yeah, absolutely. The relationships, the people, the family that you have, and then so once they've figured out what the end in mind is for them, like, how do you define success?
I think for me is like, how many like lives have you impacted, and how are you going to be remembered one day?
So it's legacy.
Not a financial legacy, I would say, even though like at the end of the day, like I want to be able to have, provide for my family and leave generational wealth. That's something that I want to do, but I don't think that's the most important thing. I think how are people going to remember me one day, and I think that's how I can measure success.
Yeah, dude, man, what a great, way to define success, because it's so easy. Like, I feel like when you're first starting off, you think you define success by how much money you have.
That's what I did. Yeah, my first success metrics was 100K. And I was like 17. I'm like, I gotta get to 100K in net worth.
Yeah,
and then
net worth.
Net worth, yeah,
that's great.
And that 100K ended up. I remember like it was like yesterday. I remember it ended up moving to like 250. And I'm like, it was a 500.
Oh man, I'm shooting for the
stars. And then it was like $1 million at that point, and I'm like, as soon as I hit $1 million, I'm done. That's not really the case, but that was, I remember like these like thought processes in my mind. So and you're right, when you get started, it's probably a monetary success metric.
But then you realize that like once you hit a certain monetary space, and I don't even know where it's at, like once you make, I don't know, 250, maybe a year, 300, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, you realize not much changes, right?
Yeah.
Like, not a whole lot different changes. Sure, you can go on a little maybe nicer vacation, you can buy a nicer car, or whatever. But nobody cares about that.
Nobody cares.
Nobody gives a shit. It doesn't matter at all, right? And so then you're like, okay, once you get there, it's almost like you get let down, because you're like, oh, I got here, I thought it was going to feel so warm and fuzzy and like, oh, I'm the man. But then you get there, you're like, God dang it, I don't really feel anything at all.
That's exactly right, though, because like I've honestly gone through a lot of these same things with myself. I had this childhood dream to own a Lamborghini. I ended up buying a Lamborghini. Ended up selling it. Good thing, like, I actually ended up making money, which is probably once in a lifetime thing.
You sold it during COVID.
I sold it during COVID. Yeah. So I ended up like making some money on it, but it was like the same thing. Like, nothing changes, and you're still the same person. So it's really like, who are you? I think a lot of people like define success like, once I get there, once I reach my destination, I'm going to become the person that I want to become. Mm-hmm. But it's like, the person that you are during the actual, your path to getting where you want to go.
Dude, it's the journey, right?
It's a journey, the journey that counts,
It's never about the destination.
But like, I've listened to a lot of these like sayings in the past, and it never clicked for me. It just never did, because like you're always chasing like, call it a monetary like goal. Mm-hmm. And until you actually get there and see, it's like, it was 100% correct. It's hard. Like, it's hard to like. Maybe it's hard to relate to some of these things, because you're always like just some people are just obsessed with just chasing like monetary like number. But it's really the journey. It's not the destination.
Well, if you think about it too, like there's been tons of books written by very, very like ultra net worth people that are just miserable, right? They're miserable. They have all the money in the world and they're just completely miserable because they miss the fact that the money doesn't buy happiness.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, you watch these commercials and they're like, yeah, I can't buy happiness, or country songs or whatever. I think there's a couple that are out there that are written about this. It's like, yeah, it can buy you a boat. Yes, it can buy you a Lamborghini. Yes, it can buy you a big, huge house, but who cares? Like that's not really the happiness. The people that are in there with you, the people that you get to experience life with, right? Those are the people that are going to give impactful moments on you, and like that's why you want to live.
100%.
So I guess kind of with being like leaving off where people remember who you are, a legacy, so to speak. You mentioned that you're a mentor on the website. So the mentor is what? How do you define being a mentor, and like how has that helped you in your own personal development?
Yeah, I think so. So in 2018, I think it was about 2018, we started doing coaching. That was just a path that we decided to kind of get into. It didn't go very far for us. You know, I just personally don't enjoy the actual, you know, day-to-day or just like social media, call it social media, just being in front of, you know, hundreds and thousands of people and that type of coaching. So I met actually a guy just at the airport 2 days ago. You actually might know him, but we were talking about, he's actually from Gilbert, but we were talking about just kind of what he does from a mentorship perspective. And he's like, I just enjoy just the one-on-one, just being able to impact people's just on a one-on-one basis. That's just what I enjoy. And I feel like I'm a lot of the same way. That just I you know, I've given a lot of advice to just personal friends and just even my parents-in-law. Right now I'm trying to get them into like, you know, real estate investing. They actually just got a comp up property. They sent me just now actually.
When looking at property today?
Driving here, they're just running some numbers on some properties. So they want me to like double check their numbers. So and I've done that for like just more and more people. Like I have some cousins that have kind of been in the industry, so I'm just trying to kind of help like just whoever I can in any kind of way. And just giving them like advice. I would say I don't want anything in return. Just giving them sharing like kind of what my personal experience has been, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. They can make that decision as well. But I'm trying to, you know, put my best foot forward and give them the advice that I, you know, wish I had maybe like when I was in that same position as they are.
You know what's crazy is that like the stuff we take for granted on knowledge that you've been able to gain over the last 10, 15 years, whatever, that like you just take for granted that we know. That one little piece of information might change the trajectory of where somebody would go, right? Like, I know I don't think about that all the time. People like I'll give advice and somebody will be like, wow, that really, like I never thought of it like that. Thank you so much for giving me that piece of advice. Or, you know, that piece of advice made them think a different way. So now they're going to not make a stupid decision in whatever they're doing because they didn't, right?
Yeah.
Like this is what really helps. I know for me, like I still pay coaches and mentors today a lot of money every year in order to be that person for me, because that ultimately helps you go further faster. Yeah,
you get different perspectives of people from different experiences. And like I'll tell you, like I was just again in Florida just this past weekend with a guy from my company, early 20s. I was quite honestly very impressed with a lot of like I can see like he wants to learn, and I want to be able to give more when people like that, though, because at the same time there's people that's like, hey, you know, you give some advice, they're like, it's okay, I kind of got my own ways of doing things, and it just comes across. And at that point, obviously, it's like, you know, you can only do so much. But like for this like person, like individual, like he was asking, like just consistently just asking questions, trying to absorb information. Like, hey, well, what advice would you give? He's asking me questions that, you know, at lunch and dinner. It's like, what advice would you give? What advice would you give me, or what advice would you have given yourself? You know, if you were my age in this path. And he's always asking questions like that, which, you know, I just want to be able to give more and more and more, and hopefully, you know, impact his life in a positive way.
But I'm sure you will too. I mean, that's the thing. Like being that type of mentor. I mean, kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, where like, you know, you want the interpersonal communication, right? You want to be in front of a smaller group of people that's more impactful. Dude, I'm a lot of that way too. Like, I don't want to have, like, you know, we talked about this earlier too. Like, I run a really small team. My operation's very small, lean and mean, right? But the relationships I have with the people in my company that I talk to all the time are deep. They're deep. It's been, you know, it's been a long time that we've worked together. And because of that, we have inherent trust with each other. You know, we have each other's backs,
Yep.
and it makes it so that I can help to benefit them as much as possible, and they in turn benefit me, right? And so like, that's, if I was going to do a coaching program, which I may at some point, it would be that same way. I'd want to do something smaller, more interpersonal, where I can influence and impact one person at a time.
Yeah, just because depends, and I know how you run your company. It's like a great way of like just keeping it lean and mean, like you said. On the reverse side, you know, we've kind of gone through a path where, you know, we had 260 employees in our company, so it's hard to like know people, to be honest. There's people that I've never even talked to in the company, and I don't know their names. Sometimes I don't know their positions. Could be like overseas. We have, you know, about like 30% of the people in the US, about 40% in India, and then the rest are just scattered throughout the world. So some people I've never even talked to, so it's really hard to just kind of have that kind of a bond, like what you're talking about. And there's positives and negatives, I mean, to both. I mean, one allows you to, you know, scale much quicker if, you know, the situation arises or the opportunity arises, but and then the other one is really just building those interpersonal skills. And now that we've kind of consolidated the company a little bit or downsized our company a little bit more, just because we've been able to leverage some of the machine learning and AI to streamline some processes throughout the company with like support and like just engineering as well. We've been able to downsize the company a little bit, and it feels a little bit more interpersonal. Just people in the office. There's still a lot of people, but it's like you know a lot more about them. You know what they, you know,
you can talk to
how their lives are, and, you know, just kind of get just personal, you know, perspectives of things. And
I feel like, I mean, so you like build this big machine, and then now you're just efficient, you know, making it more efficient, right?
Yeah, we've scaled down just from honestly, technology has allowed us to scale down,
which is great, which is amazing. So Ivo, dude, it has been amazing talking to you today. I think we've gone through a ton of information, just the growth of how Batch came to be, the influence and impact it has on other companies, other investors. And probably the most important on how it's more than the money, right? It's about what the impact has on your life, on your relationships, on your family, you know, and how it all kind of goes together. So, dude, I appreciate you being here today.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Man. Thank you. Hey, guys, thank you so much for listening in with that conversation I had with Ivo with Batchleads. Batchleads, batch data is a great software. I told you in the show, I personally use it, and so I want to give you a special offer. If you go to batchleads.io/invest this, there's a special offer for you. I mean, it's been a huge tool for me. So go ahead and go there now. Check it out. Happy investing out there.